Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Dogma podcast. I'm Jose, and I'm joined as every week by my ineffable friend Blake.
Hello, glad to be here, and I can't wait to talk about what we're talking about today.
Yes, it has been a very long way coming. Some of our audience maybe know that we have more than 250 episodes in another podcast, pretty similar to this one. And we make many references to Sofia Coppola and to this movie in particular, but we never really recorded about it.
But now
is the time.
In the 25th anniversary, in honor of the 25th anniversary of the film.
Yeah, this movie. We're talking about other movies that they never really touch us. The Virgin Suicides touch us. Is the kind of movie that you go to HR to talk about. This movie touched me. But yeah, our movie of the week is The Virgin Suicides by Sofia Coppola. Sofia Coppola. Not Sofia Coppola.
Yeah, just keep forward out of it.
Yeah, and I think that I chose this movie.
Yeah, which blows my mind. But before you get into the synopsis, you need to level set with me your feelings towards Sofia Coppola. So my understanding is that you kind of have a love-hate relationship with her. Is that true?
Okay. Yeah, that's correct. I could put it like that. But the thing is, it's not as an intense relationship that I end up watching all of her movies. You know, it's not like other directors that I feel is I don't really like them, but for some weird reason I finish watching everything that they put out there, and then I keep telling myself, it's like, why do I expose myself to this? In this case, it's more of I think that she has pretty good movies like Lost in Translation and other ones that I didn't connect with, and then she has Marie Antoinette. So it's someone that I don't really follow. It's more like, you may tell... What was the other one that she directed after Marie Antoinette? Somewhere?
Somewhere, yep.
From that point onward, I didn't watch anything that she put out.
You didn't watch The Bling Ring?
No.
Interesting. I guess the other big ones would be The Beguiled, which I did watch that one. And then... the most recent one that no one even knew came out, Priscilla.
Queen of the Desert?
No, we talked about this. Priscilla was Elvis's 14-year-old bride.
Oh, yeah. I think that we talk about it. So I respect that she has a style that you may like more or less, but I think that is very personal. Is that you can watch several of her movies, and even Marie Antoinette, that it may be a bit more of a crazy one. And The Beguiled is another period piece, but you can say is that, I mean, I don't know in The Beguiled, but is that you can say Marie Antoinette is this has to be Sofia Coppola. So I like that she has a voice, but she doesn't really resonate with me enough for just saying that I am going to be watching everything that she puts out.
Yeah, so I think I like her more than you, or at least I liked her longer than you, because I really liked, we won't talk about, Lost in Translation was my gateway film that introduced me to her. I think anyone thinks that's a great film.
Yeah.
I do like
Marie Antoinette.
Not your parents. I think Marie Antoinette is good. Somewhere was so obtuse and boring that I did watch The Bling Ring after that, but after The Bling Ring, I was kind of done. Because of the cast, I gave The Beguiled a chance, but I also felt it was boring, and then I kind of was like, no, I'm done with her. In fact, I didn't even know Priscilla came out last year, just 1 year ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, no, I completely ignored it. It's interesting because she was fairly popular. It's when you start with The Virgin Suicides and then Lost in Translation, it's people were like, oh, what is going to be happen next? Marie Antoinette happened next, but it was a very upcoming and promising director, and I think that it has been forgotten a tiny bit.
Kind of like Francis.
Well, Megalopolis is around the corner, as we were saying, for remind us that he exists. So,
but I mean, they started out strong, right, and then kind of just got weaker as they went along. That's how I feel about Sofia Coppola. She had some really inventive, creative, stylistic projects, and then, well,
Cities allowed.
this is kind of how we feel about like Steve McQueen, right? Super interesting early on in his career, and then gets respected but boring.
Yeah, the same thing that it actually happened is I pinged you like some weeks ago and I asked you, hey, did you know that there was a Steve McQueen movie that was released last year? And we didn't even realize about it.
A Steve McQueen Holocaust film. How did we not hear about this?
Yeah, I would have expected like much more bomb, and noise around it. But yeah, I think that it was exactly what you described. Is like, I think that 12 Years a Slave was his peak of recognition, not his peak of directing. And then it was Widows that I still enjoy, and then people forgot about him.
Yep. He needs to make another movie with Michael Fassbender. We'd all pay attention then.
Sorry, with naked Michael Fassbender.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
I'll take him
differentiate
clothed,
here,
naked, anytime.
Sure. But, it's like we have, like, how I say, like, hunger and shame. You need, like, a third one where he's naked. I mean, 12 Years a Slave, I think that he's dressed up.
Yes. Did we record about hunger?
No, we didn't. I record about shame.
Adding it to the list.
But in any case, we're not talking about Steve McQueen or Michael Fassbender parts. We're talking about the Virgin Suicides. And the reason why I wanted to watch this is because my parents were not too long ago visiting, and I actually played Lost in Translation for them. They had just been to Japan. And I think that it is like a movie that if you have been to a country where you cannot really communicate with the people there and like and you have to deal with the cultural differences, it's a movie pretty easy to resonate with. So I played it about like, this is not like a fast-paced movie or anything, but maybe you are going to be like empathizing with the struggles of these characters in a different culture. They hated it. They hated it to a point that we have to stop it.
Aww.
Yes, just because they were like at a point of we can keep watching this, but we're going to be expressing our discontent all the time. And then when I stop it, it's like, look, I'm done. Is that I will watch it another day with my boyfriend, but I don't have to put up with this. I cannot believe that I had to defend Sofia Coppola, like right now. But it's like, I don't think that anyone deserves this.
She deserves to be defended when it comes to Lost in Translation. It's
the
true.
Lost in Translation, I agree. On that part, I do agree. It was more of a, you are not getting enjoyment, I'm getting upset. I have to watch this movie dubbed to Spanish. Is that there is no reason to keep this suffering for anyone.
That's the right call.
Yeah, and then they were actually complaining about like, no, but we want to know how it ends. It's like, yep, nope. If you were not enjoying it at this point, you're not going to be enjoying it at the end.
Did you say nobody knows how it ends because they didn't let us hear what they said?
I didn't tell them that. I just said, well, we will record one day about Lost in Translation because we didn't record on our previous podcast about that one either. But the movies by Sofia Coppola, I have the feeling that they are not built around the idea of a big emotional payoff at the end. They're a bit more of vignettes of life, but they are not so designed with the perspective of, and then you get like a very huge payoff. Even they have like resolution. I don't think that they are built around the idea of the important part is the destination. It's more about like the important part is the trip towards there.
I was just going to use that same cliche. Yeah, it's more about like sitting in moments rather than, having that emotional payoff or a resolution, let's say. There's no resolution in almost any of her films.
Yeah. And what I felt is like, well, if my parents were getting pissed about like exactly that, of nothing is happening, people are dumb in this movie, it's like, I don't want to even think how they would feel about the Virgin Suicides. That is basically that, but with teenagers committing suicide.
In fairness, I agree with you, but this is a rare example of Sofia Coppola adapting an existing novel. Whereas like Somewhere, Lost in Translations, those just came out of the mind of Sofia Coppola, where I don't think there's any resolution in there either.
Well, but even there was a resolution in the Virgin Suicides, and we'll get this into a moment. I don't think that is like the highlight per se. We will talk about it in a second.
Yeah, I think
But
it's more about like
just feel like
remembering your youth and like important
Correct.
things that happened
Correct.
to you when you were becoming
Yeah.
a young adult, and
yeah, and how it actually like shape you towards the future. Yeah. So I just felt like I think that Sofia Coppola, she had like really good movies. I mean, or at least like movies that I respect. The Virgin Suicides, I think that it has like one of the best soundtracks ever in a movie. But that's like because I'm weak to French electro music. But I wanted to watch it again, and I wanted to discuss it with you because I know that this is like one of your, I won't say like favorite, but I would say that you really respect the Virgin Suicides, and we have always disagreed in our opinion about it.
It was very impactful, influential in my movie tastes in my early 20s, let's say that.
No. So did I tell you when did I watch the Virgin Suicides? Because I watched it like way before Lost in Translation.
I'm guessing in 1999 then.
Probably like around that time when it was released, and it was like on VHS. I rented for the same weekend the Virgin Suicides and Being John Malkovich.
That is the film I was telling you earlier that my husband hasn't seen that I wanted to rewatch.
Oh, I will be down. You know that I'm always down to rewatch that movie, but I walk away with Being John Malkovich being mind blown. Like, okay, this has been insane. It's like an insane story. Visually has been crazy. The script is top notch about like what do you have to take for coming up with these ideas. And then I was the Virgin Suicides, and I just felt like, so what? What? It's like, wait, what do you want me to take out of this? Especially when it's a term, when it's about this theme, I just feel like, I don't know if you can do this. If you're allowed to do the
All right, why don't you
trivializing
summarize it, and then we'll...
Oh, you want me to summarize it? I thought that you were going to summarize it.
It was... Oh, yeah, sorry, this was your pick. Yeah, absolutely. So let me summarize this. This film takes place in the mid-'70s. I think it's 1975. In a suburb in Michigan, I believe. Just let's say the Midwest. And there are 5 sisters that live with their 2 parents, played by Wood. And I love the 2 actors that play the parents.
James Booth and Kathleen Turner?
Yes. They are extremely Catholic, and they don't really let their 5 daughters experience life. They're very, very, very overprotective. And there is a group of 5 male friends that live across the street and in the neighborhood, and they're not related, but they're 5 friends spanning kind of the same ages as the 5 sisters. And they become obsessed with the sisters, and they kind of just watch them over a summer. At the beginning of the summer, I think the youngest sister tries to commit suicide, and by slitting her wrists, but she doesn't die. She gets therapy, and the therapist tells the parents, "Hey, it's a cry for help, and that you should let the girls live life." And so the parents kind of spend the next time that we spend with that family trying to find ways to let them have a typical teenage experience. And basically, I don't think there's any point in giving away more details, but these 5 male friends and these 5 sisters end up having romantic encounters. They have family dates. Josh Hartnett comes over to watch TV with the family.
Yeah. Do they actually like get... I'm going to have to go like too much into the details. I always had the feeling that they play a bit of a role of an unattainable, Like,
yeah, these girls are more of fantasy than reality.
Yeah, it's something that you would chase as a teenager about like, hey, this is my idealized kind of thing. So they fill the gaps about the girls, and they piece like who they are, like from snippets that they get of them. I think that, don't they get at some point like the diary of one of them?
Yes, they do read the diary. And I agree with what you just said. In fact, the film actually has somewhat of a voiceover because the film is told from the perspective of these 5 men who are now adults, and they're remembering this thing that happened in their teenage years. And I think that's it's not that is what Sofia Coppola was going towards, like these really influential experiences you have as a teenager and how they affect you later on in life.
Yeah.
So it's more about a mood and nostalgia than it is about reality.
Yeah. I think that you define it like perfectly. That is like it's the movie. The main characters are not on the screen that often, but it's about them, and we don't see them as grown-ups. But it's like the takeaway is a bit more about like how a single summer can influence you and just like stick with you about like that experience. And it's a bit of a coming of age story, but there is no age passing part to it. So I will like a bit more when I walk away like the first time from watching it, I feel like there is no message, there is nothing. Is that there is like a bit of a similar to how my parents like were reacting to Lost in Translation about like there is nothing, is that this is dumb, is that there is nothing happening, there is no going anywhere, there is no like build up. I felt the same way the first time that I watched it. This time I appreciated it more as this is a trip, and you are like hearing it from the perspective of how impacted these people were, but not from the perspective of the people that they were the events about.
So if you agreed what I said about this being more about a mood or re-experiencing a memory, I know that we don't have a memory, but that's kind of what we're supposed to experience. No. Do you need there to be a typical build-up, climax, resolution? Because for me, I think there's a bigger place in my heart for films where you're just supposed to experience... I don't know. You described it very well. Like
the Turing horse.
No, because that had the greatest emotional payoff that I've ever experienced. It's like 3.5 hours of edging with like the greatest orgasm.
Like the 2 seconds orgasm. Then you can translate it to a heart attack. But yeah, we don't have to go back to Bellatar. Sorry, I interrupt you.
No. I just I think that knowing me and knowing you, I'm more patient with these films that don't really have a destination. They're just kind of treading water in a way.
That you're just there.
Yeah, you're just there and you're experiencing... I don't know. I'm not being very good at explaining this, but I agree with you. There's no destination.
I understand. Yeah.
I'm just happy to spend time with Lux, and Lux is played by Kirsten Dunst. She's kind of the whore of like the group. Yeah.
Whore. Okay. I agree with you. I understand like what you mean. And I think that Sofia, like that vibe that you're describing is like, I think that what Sofia Coppola was truly after. And I think that is like Lost in Translation does the same a tiny bit better, I feel. But it's not that it's bad here. Is that for this being like her first movie is surprisingly decent.
I agree, and honestly, I didn't think I realized this was her first feature length.
I think so, no?
Wow.
Let me just check.
She's very assured. I mean, she grew up on the sets of like The Godfather, right? Like she saw good filmmaking, so it's not that surprising, but it's a great first film. I mean,
it's surprising that it's like, okay, maybe she was on the stage, but let's remember that before this was it was like just some shorts and music videos. And even like David Fincher that did the same, like some shorts and music videos. The first full-length movie that he did was Alien 3.
Yeah, but I guess that's true. When you compare it to The Virgin Suicide, you're like,
Yeah, then David Fincher became an amazing director, but Sofia Coppola just jumped from doing a couple of, The Flaming Lips. She did a music video for The Flaming Lips, and then she jumped into doing this. That is, you have an amazing visual language that it comes like from your music videos. Probably you have a good understanding of music, how she uses air. I think that's like the perfect match of the vibe that she tries to create, a bit more of a moody, like not too intense vibe that is like just with you while you are there. And I think that is like a perfect matching.
I hate how Project Runway destroyed this phrase, but whether or not you like it, I think Sofia Coppola has a very distinct point of view, and she knows how to direct that point of view. Whether or not, again, you find value in that, that's a different question, but
Yeah,
she, as a director, knows what she wants to say.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I think that they in this movie and Lost in Translation, it click. I feel like it's like
Can I put that on the record? You
Sure.
said that the Virgin Suicides clicked?
sure. I just it click. I feel like it click. It's like now that I'm a bit more older and I was like more movies, I feel like this is actually good. It's like now I understand a bit better about like what she was going after. It's not Charles Kaufman, and Spike Jonze, but I get it.
And I do think that the 90s were a particularly fun decade for film where people were taking risks. Studios paid more money for directors to take risks, right? And I think a lot of them were like Fight Club, let's call it perfect, but some of them were not perfect, like The Matrix, but still super fun, right? I think this is so indicative of that 90s kind of genre of we're going to take risks and it doesn't matter if it's perfect, but it's super fun to watch. And for me, this is a fun film to watch.
Yeah, and I just think we were discussing the last time about how do you say A Quiet Place Day One is it, and it actually like just represents a lot of how like the cinema making has changed. Is what you said. Is like these are like big studios, like the one that did Virgin Suicides, the one that did like Being John Malkovich, this and Fight Club. Is that these three movies were released on the same year,
Which is
and
crazy.
they're like three. And they're like three amazing movies that you can still like watch today and just like see like holy shit, is like this is amazing that studios would actually invest like this amount of money in creating this.
And they're all
You know,
aging
is
quite
it-
well, to be honest. Like, if you think that this movie
Yeah.
came out 25 years ago, that's crazy. It feels super, super relevant.
Yeah, I think that when I was watching it, I was telling you, it's like, dude, this movie that right now is 25 years old, it was about something that happened 25 years before it.
Oh, wow.
So it has happened like 50 years ago, like the story that they are like portraying. But it's like really well like crafted in about similar to it reminded me, I don't think that you watched it, Alexander Payne's The Holdovers.
The Holdovers. No, I didn't see it.
Yeah, but it's based on the 70s, and it's like this movie probably could have been released in the 70s. It's like it's playing like the smoke and mirrors game like pretty well for just telling a story with today's sensibilities, but that you believe that it's actually set on that period of time that we didn't live. It's a movie that could have been released in the 70s, and the same thing with the Virgin Suicides. Is that it plays his cards like pretty well, but just like telling a story that from the 90s onwards, like that kind of sensibility, I think that it clicks like for people.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, I like this movie.
Cool. Should we go over the questions? Yeah.
Yes.
Would you watch it again?
I will watch this movie forever until I die.
How many times did you watch it?
I've probably seen it 5 or 6 times now. In my early 20s, I like to rewatch films like a lot.
Gotcha. I think that I would rewatch it again. I mean, not tomorrow, but definitely it's a movie that I wouldn't be opposed. It's like after this rewatching, I felt like, oh, this is way better than I gave it credit for the first time.
I'm honestly happy to hear that.
Yeah. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not in any conversation, but there's definitely a situations where I would be like, you should check this out. Like, do you like Air?
Yeah. True. Because I think that is like it's what I was mentioning earlier. It connects with the same vibe that the band has about more like, hey, I don't want to just like change completely everything, but on like a easy mood that you can get into, and it's more mellow and more calm. And if it resonates with you, amazing. The only reason why I'm a tiny bit hesitant, I'm like 90% recommended, in favor of recommending it. The 10% remaining is like, it's a topic, it's a theme that can be a bit tricky.
And not to give away the ending, but it might be in the title.
Yes, and I think that even like the kids, sorry, this is a 25-year-old movie, so tiny bit of a spoiler alert, but is that the kids mention like how is it going to end like pretty soon. Like she
Yeah,
was
it's
the
not a
first to go.
spoiler. Yep.
Yeah. So, would you remember it?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah. I I remember like parts of it, like the party that they do, and like how they go quote unquote, you know. So I just feel like I get the gist, but I think that the magic of this movie may be more on the details, more on the you are there and you experience things, not about like the hey, I remember that it starts here and it ends here.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Is there anything artistic about it?
There's so much artistic about it. I think the mood, the style is cool. The music, the
Yeah.
performances are
Yeah.
great. I think, just as we just mentioned, her direction, whether or not you like it, it's very assured.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think she did a great job adapting the script. I do think she's a good writer.
Yep. I fully agree. I think that this movie, and I think that his first three movies, I don't know like anything else after Marie Antoinette, they're artistic. It's like it's as we were saying, it's like she has a voice, she has a point of view, and she's bold about like how put it out there. It's like I feel like all of the pieces like come together like really really well. It's not like Mike Leigh that we discussed multiple times. There's hey, he's super solid. He's strong as directing, but he's not like a super strong, unique, different voice or approach. It's not like a quirky thing like Wes Anderson or Sofia Coppola. But I think that she has that voice and she's bold on how to represent it, so it never really comes as super heavy-handed. It's not Wes Anderson.
Yeah, it's not distracting as a style, whereas
Correct.
the Grand
Yeah.
Budapest Hotel is like, is this a cartoon? I don't understand.
Yep. 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 Is this a timeless piece?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's rooted firmly in the '70s, but I think the themes that are explored, the styles, I don't feel like this film has aged almost at all.
Yep. I agree. I think that it's completely timeless. Like the story about like you overprotection is like just killing, like the growth and also like the coming of age of how you are like influenced by stories that they happen around you is always going to be timeless, I feel.
And also, not to get too deep into this, but I think the film there's a voiceover by the youngest girl, the one that tries to commit suicide first, and she talks specifically about how hard it is to be a teenage girl. And I do think there's a lot in this film that I can't relate to as a man, but I think probably it would be interesting to talk to a woman about how they feel this represents being a teenage American girl. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Would you turn this movie into a TV show?
No, you can't put like commercials in between like scenes of the show. And I know
Well,
we
it
don't
doesn't
watch
have to be
commercials anymore.
commercials.
This is the source material requires a feature length film, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was debating because I can see like the format of they go, like from time to time, about like every two episodes maybe one of them goes. But the thing is, when you start like with the burn down of, and I'm not saying that that's like the schema that the movie follows, but if you start removing characters, is like the tension that it builds up, it's like the family, how the movie progresses is that they becoming like more paranoid, like more close up, and everything becomes like more and more oppressive. I wouldn't want to put up with that like for too long. I had the feeling that it's like this has to be like 90 minutes. It becomes to a point that just has to go.
Yep, I agree. I think the structure of the storytelling doesn't give way to episodic kind of formatting.
But do you think this movie could have been better?
There's nothing glaring that I would say this is a problem. I wouldn't change this film at all.
I'm going to go with no too, but it's true that I would have liked to have a tiny bit more about the kids, a bit more of development of the kids.
Of all the
Instead of
kids, the
being
boys
like
and the girls?
Yeah, because we get like a lot of development of the girls, and at the end, as we were saying, is that this is a movie about like the experience of the girls and these oppressive parents, but also it's a story about the boys and how they were touched like by that experience. But it's we don't get like the full picture of who did they become. We only see one character that is not one of the 5 kids that we see him as a grown up. But we don't get to see like the full adults that they have become because of that experience. We see that kid, that is that we actually hear like how he was affected about this experience, but not the others. And a part of me just feels is that maybe you could have added like 30 more minutes, but then maybe the movie would be too much. I don't know, maybe the original book does that.
Well, again, it's kind of the intention of Sophia, right? Like, I don't think the point of the story was who these men turned into. It was the experience of these teenage girls. For better or for worse, I'm not saying she's right. But I think adding that on would kind of shift that focus.
Yeah, maybe. So that's the part is that I'm going to go with no. I'm curious about like what movie would we have gotten if she actually expanded beyond there. But I think that at that point probably would have been like watered down like too much. So no. Right, so these were all of the questions. Should we score it?
We should. This was weirdly your pick. I'm going to give this an 8.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to give it a 7.5.
All right. That tracks
Pretty close.
how we feel about Sofia Coppola.
Yeah. Believe me, I would have never expected to score The Virgin Suicides with a 7.5. This is just for saying how much did I grew or I degraded as a human being.
Now, at some point, we're going to have to watch Marie Antoinette so I can get your score on that.
Oh no, you already did do this, and we already recorded about Marie Antoinette. There
No
is no
way
second
we did.
chances for that movie. Yes, we did, dude. We did. There is no second chances for that movie, believe me.
All right, that's fair.
Okay. Well, I think that this is it about the Virgin Suicides and about like this episode of this cinematic podcast. So, Cinematic Dogma podcast. To everyone out there, thank you so much for listening to us.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.